welcome back. You ask me the significance of fashion, and I tell you in the words of Yohji Yamamoto, when fashion is clothing, it's expendable, but when fashion is how we understand ourselves, it's essential. We need this. Fashion's essential. It's been a while. I have many stories to tell you, but today we're talking about my magazine, POPOVA. Clothing, culture, and consciousness. That's what we're talking about, and that's what POPOVA is. When I first started working on the project, I brought it to my graphic design teacher, and she asked me why the name POPOVA, and I answered because there's no precondition to what the name means. It's blank. If I had given it a name like hollow or stone, it's like you already have an experience with the word, and therefore you formulate your own idea of it. POPOVA is a name, but you don't really understand what it is yet until you experience it for yourself. And in that way, you have the opportunity to define not only based on the context in which POPOVA communicates, but based on your own experience. And that's a central theme to POPOVA and its tone of voice. It's not an antagonistic perspective in fashion. It's not an anti-fashion publication. It's a protagonistic hero's journey approach where you decide. And, you can decide to become the villain, but you can also decide to take what has burdened you and build it into something that facilitates your expansion. So I've had a lot of questions from colleagues and friends, ask me, okay, well, if it's about spirituality, do you think you're going to dumb down a lot of the content? And that doesn't really make sense to me, because these themes of consciousness or quantum physics or, hermetic law, esoteric beliefs and studies, you kind of interpret them through your own experience and through your own association with them. So for me to tell you how to feel about POPOVA and this publication and your own spirituality, whether you're spiritual or not, that's not the point. You're a creative person. You are working with something greater than yourself. You're working with something that speaks through you. You can acknowledge that. And so, who's the target customer? Who's interacting with your publication? Someone who creates their own reality, but not because they're spiritual or because they're religious or because, they're on this new age wave of betterment and ascension, but because they understand through their own experience with their own work that there is a principle of co-creation, and they might not understand it fully, because we can't understand it fully. We have to experience it in order to, acquire knowledge. There's academic knowledge, a key perspective in this publication, but there's also experience, and that can only be accessed by play and your own dialogue and your own movement with the subject matter. A lot of scientific discoveries have come about by experimentation. We don't get from point A to point B without the liminal space in between. The first edition is called Instinct. How does it play a role in the way that you know the correct direction or material or color?
Instinct is fundamental in fashion, and for me it's the number one thing that a designer needs in order to survive and grow. Today there's a lot of eyes, a lot of scrutiny on designers, but if you don't follow your gut instincts and what your instincts tell you, you're not going to make it as a creative force. So to answer your question, for me it's a fundamental part of fashion, and it's in relationship with emotion as well. And if we don't have emotion in fashion, then we don't have anything that feels substantial. So for me, instinct is a vital creative skill that designers need to protect.
It's a great place to start and step through, because not only do we start from a place of feeling and intuition, but we also validate the fact that that is a very accurate way of going about things. My good friend Mari Murakami, she wrote a book called New Era Solutions, and on Christmas we sat on Ponte Santa Trinita, and she had given me a copy and told me about this soul filter and how, what if we didn't need external data computing systems, but what if we had an algorithm already placed inside ourselves? What if we could listen instinctually to what our own computing system tells us about our reality? What colors we're drawn to, what songs we're drawn to. What if there's reason to all of this? What if it works as an algorithm inside ourselves that points us in the right direction? In the same tone, I was inspired by the word instinct and what it actually meant to be integrated in the body, in the mind, and in the heart. How can these three systems that are really important for our place here, we can bring it down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These are primal patterns. So why do we deny ourselves our instinct when we know that it's derivative of our truth? And so when we're in this accelerated landscape where everything's moving so fast and we honestly can't really understand anymore what's right and what's wrong, why do we deny ourselves our fundamental truth, our instincts, something that guides us through our body, through our interests, through our likings? Why is that looked down upon in this day and age? And so coming back to questioning what it means to listen to something that can't be defined in the context of time, in the context of system and profit. The great artists know this. The great scientists know this. What is your intuition? Why and how has it brought you here? Contrary to popular belief and my ambitious dreams, I'm doing this because I genuinely believe in the perspective that Popova carries. I think that it's essential to find new narratives and perspectives. It's essential to experiment. How are we going to evolve past the existing? The entire media right now is a saturated conversation on lack of quality creative directors and lack of direction and too much information and over-intellectualization. How do we gain a new perspective? You gain a new perspective with understanding universal principles, with understanding vastness, and then applying them to how culture has always emerged through experimentation. You ask me the significance of fashion, and I tell you in the words of Yohji Yamamoto, when fashion is clothing, it's expendable, but when fashion is how we understand ourselves, it's essential. We need this. Fashion's essential. The fashion magazine Renaissance is here. The definition of Renaissance is a widespread reawakening of creative, intellectual, or societal activity, historically referring to the 14th and 17th century European movement that revived classical antiquity. Reference to, old being better, the craft being better, the knowledge being better, is the same way that now we're acknowledging in the midst of this acceleration and AI and everything's going so fast, but we don't really understand it. And also we're starting to lose the line between what's reality and what's not reality. It is important that we go to the essential practices of what it means to build fashion culture, what it means to understand our current context through clothing. And so you ask me why clothing, culture, and consciousness. And I tell you because it's essential, because it's necessary. And, there are publications such as Epoch and Visionnaire that kind of touch on this. Even Vestoy that, comments on the context of fashion through, an academic perspective. There's Purple that integrates, brilliant artists and different perspectives and visionaries. No one's really talking about what it means to be a creative person and what it means to see the world from the micro to the macro, because they're both essential. There's no fragmented perspective with Popova. You're getting all of it. And I actually think that's essential to stepping forward and creating what's new. Not that what's new will change us or save us, but constantly asking the question of how does the formless become form? How is culture, clothing, and consciousness related? That's the point. Constantly being in a space of wanting to understand, wanting to know, wanting to integrate, wanting to, to grow with the system. I said before, this is not anti-fashion, because out are the days of trying to break things down to start again. We can't break it down. We don't need a new system. We need a new way of viewing it. We need a new perspective. We need to see it a different way. Because when we see things a different way, we experience them differently and we go about them differently and then we build differently. It's not for no reason that movements have manifestos before them. This is a manifesto. POPOVA is a manifesto, and it tells you its methodology is in the immediate now, separate from nothing. Evolution as a product of continuity. That's the methodology here. Number one, we're bringing it to the exact moment we're in any stage of building the publication, in any stage of being someone who is experiencing the space online, through YouTube, Instagram, digital platform, and the digital community that it's going to be built around POPOVA, but also anyone who is touching the limited edition print. You are interacting with it now, and that's the only thing that exists. And it's all connected through where we are here. Separate from nothing. Why do you think you're above? Why do you think you're below? You're not better. You're not less. You're not lesser. That's not how we go about being a creative person. That's not how we go about creating. You acknowledge your relationship to everything. Because when you cut yourself off, you are also separate from life. So again, this is not an anti-fashion manifesto. You are not separate from. And the way that you will change will not be through resistance. There is no resistance, because what you're pushing back pushes back against you. Evolution is a product of continuity. This is not about ascension or evolution just because I've mentioned meditation and consciousness and what it means to be mindful. This is about, if you continue to step forward, you will continue to walk forward. If you continue to write, you will continue to progress in your writing. If you continue to speak, you will become better at speaking. If you continue to believe that creating things is a way of making the world a beautiful place, the world will become beautiful. So, oh my God, are you preaching? I'm not preaching. This is a co-creation. You are a collaborator, not only with the people who came before you, but the people who will step after you, with the people who are in your circle, with the people who believe in you, with the people who hate on you. You are in this dance together, and you are not separate from it. You've forgotten how to dream. There are no more dreamers. And there are no more dreamers who have their feet on the ground. In that way, POPOVA becomes a visionary publication. Not because it dreams, but because it does. And in a world that is fractalized and stagnant and frozen because we don't know where to go, the only people that will bring us forward is the people who walk regardless of their sight. We can't see anything right now, but we've never been able to see anything. Do you think 600 years ago they were able to see where they would go next? Do you think 20 years ago we would know where we would be in 2026? Absolutely not. We've never been able to see. But has that stopped anything anyway? No, that's not the point. You're not supposed to see. You're supposed to do. You're supposed to build. You are supposed to write, and you're supposed to make. POPOVA is not a fantasy. This is happening regardless. Regardless if you buy it. Regardless if you like it. Regardless if you believe in it. It'll happen because it has happened before, and it'll happen again. POPOVA started as a magazine I made when I was in high school. I was 17. It was a hell of a year. I would never go back to that year. I just took all of my frustration towards the life I was living. Because you're young and you don't know what you're going to do, and the world's big, and you're just been shown the blueprint of what everyone else has done, but everyone else has followed a script, and you can write your own script. So I took the pen and I took the paper and I made this magazine. I got into pony moda easily. They said, we need more people like you at the school. And I believed them, and I still believe them. Because it only takes one person seeing it differently. It only takes one person hearing it. It only takes one person being a little bit more still. It's not even just like a spiritual perspective. Like, we're in the luxury slowdown. McKinsey 2026 report, download it, read it. We're talking about the big players. They're focusing on creativity. They're focusing on craftsmanship. Because guess what? People are not buying bullshit anymore. The stakes are too high. Wages are too low. No one cares unless there's actual thoughts, unless there's actual quality. What do you feel? We cannot be dissociated from the system anymore. We cannot be dissociated from fashion and what's going on. We cannot be dissociated in our bodies, in the way we wear our clothes, in the way we read and write and interact with our loved ones. We can't be dissociated anymore. We cannot resist. We cannot fight back. We must be with it, and that is how we're going to change. That is how things are going to change. It's not about revolution. It's about surrender. It's about seeing what you've got and doing whatever you can with that. I didn't understand the direction I was going. I wanted to make a magazine because I believed in this whole renaissance of print. I think it's necessary to remember where fashion came from and pay respect in the physical craft, in the design, in the craftsmanship, in the paper and the publication. We have to remember why it's important. And it's important because it brings you to the immediate now. You're holding it in your hands. If you're constantly scrolling through things on your phone, we've lost the immediate now. The immediate now is in a stream of everything else, past, present, and future. There's no clear direction. There's only confusion. There is no final destination, only a state of being, and so we seek only to come back to why we draw, dance, sing, paint, laugh, cry, break, come back together to break open again. This is a study, not a conclusion. There is no far up mountain where we will find our peace. There is only the here and the now. There is only the needle and the thread. There is only the pen and the paper. Beyond right and wrong, there is a field. That is where we go. You laugh at me and say nothing's forever. I say Popova is forever. Popova is not a place. Popova is a current. You say magazines are dead. I say nothing dies. You say people never change. I say an atom is composed of 99% space. You say there's no way of knowing. I say there's no need to. And so we make. Because there's no other route to knowing, no other way of changing, no other method of radiating something that has always been us, the current that lives and breathes through everything, the love that lives and breathes through everything. This is not preaching. This is a co-creation. This is not avoiding the muck. This is the 9 to 5 lunchtime reading. This is not an antidote to suffering. This is a girl in a magazine. You tell me it's hard and not worth trying for. I tell you, where there is life, there is always a reason to keep fighting. This is the micro, the meso, and the macro, clothing, culture, and consciousness. Popova is the thread that weaves it.